Step into Victorian Britain, a world that prided itself on steam, empire, and endless progress. But look past the polished boots and stiff collars, and you'll find a hidden world of workers whose jobs were so dangerous, so filthy, and so soul-crushing, most of us wouldn't last a single hour. These weren't glamorous careers. They were the kind of jobs that chewed people up and spat them out, only to be replaced by someone even more desperate. This was an age before safety regulations, before protective gear, before the faintest idea that a worker's life was worth protecting. Danger lurked in every factory, on every street, and in every workshop. Imagine waking before dawn to a thick, choking fog of coal smoke. Your day is filled with hazards you can't see, can't avoid, and can't even understand. The air tastes like metal. Everything smells faintly of sewage or ash. People move like ghosts through smog so thick you can barely see your own hands. Accidents are routine. Illness is expected. Injury is so common that workers just bandage themselves up and keep going, because a single missed shift could mean starvation. Children worked these jobs too. Their small bodies were perfect for crawling into tight spaces and reaching into machinery. The Victorians called it character building. In reality, it was just deadly. One of the most feared jobs belonged to the matchstick makers. Most of them were young girls, working in cramped factories filled with white phosphorus fumes. It sounded innocent enough dipping wooden sticks into chemicals to make a match, but that phosphorus slowly ate away at their faces from the inside out. The condition was called phossy jaw. Their teeth would loosen, their gums would rot, and their jawbones would literally glow in the dark from the necrosis. The smell was described as sickly, sweet, and impossible to escape. As soon as a girl showed symptoms, she was often fired. The factory owners didn't want the sight of dying workers scaring off the healthy ones. It was a slow, agonizing, and almost always fatal end, all for a tiny wage. Then there were the chimney sweeps, often small boys bought or apprenticed into the trade. Their job was to climb up narrow, pitch-black chimneys caked with years of sticky soot. The passages were sometimes so tight they had to wriggle through like insects, elbows up, knees scraping against raw brick. Getting stuck was terrifyingly common, and many children suffocated in total darkness before help could ever reach them. Even if they survived the chimneys, the soot coated their lungs for life, leading to respiratory diseases that killed them young. They developed a unique form of cancer known as chimney sweep's carcinoma, but they were told to just keep climbing, keep scraping, keep coughing. No one asked if they were scared. Fear didn't change the fact that the job had to be done. Victorian streets were far from clean, and someone had to deal with the filth. Enter the gong farmers and night soil collectors. While London slept, these workers emptied cesspits and outdoor toilets armed with nothing more than shovels, lanterns, and a tolerance for a stench most people couldn't even imagine. The air in those pits was a toxic cocktail of methane and ammonia. Many workers passed out the moment they climbed down. Some never woke up. Yet, without their nightly work, entire neighborhoods would have drowned in their own waste, and diseases like cholera and typhoid would have spread even faster. Speaking of disease, gravediggers faced their own set of grim hazards. Burials were constant, especially during epidemics. Gravediggers handled bodies without gloves, masks, or any protection. They breathed in the dust of old remains as they hacked new graves into overcrowded churchyards, sometimes having to break through old bones just to make space. During periods of high mortality, they worked around the clock, digging by lantern light, hoping the waterlogged earth wouldn't collapse and bury them alive. It didn't matter if the deceased had died from smallpox or cholera. The job had to be done, and it had to be done quickly. Meanwhile, the booming textile mills offered work to thousands, but at a terrible cost. Mill workers, mostly women and children, spent 14-hour days inside roaring machine rooms. The air was a thick fog of cotton fibers that they breathed in with every gasp, leading to a condition known as mill fever. The deafening clatter of machinery slowly destroyed their hearing. But the machines themselves were the real killers. Looms and spinning frames had no safety guards. One loose sleeve, one moment of distraction, and a worker's arm More, their entire body could be dragged into gears that tore through flesh in seconds. Mill accidents were so common that they barely made the newspapers. The owners only cared about keeping the machines running. Then there were the navvies, the powerful laborers who built Britain's canals, tunnels, and railways. These strong, burly men worked with picks and shovels from dawn till dusk, often knee-deep in mud or waist-deep in freezing water. Many were killed by landslides, tunnel collapses, or the explosives used to blast through rock. If the work didn't kill them, the living conditions often did. They lived in rough, temporary camps where disease spread like wildfire. Alcohol was often the only escape from the brutal, back-breaking labor. Britain celebrated its railways as engineering miracles, but behind every mile of track lay the unmarked graves of the men who gave their lives to build them. In the city's underbelly, rat catchers and sewer hunters had their own terrifying routines. Rat catchers, armed with sacks, dogs, or just their bare hands, hunted through infested basements and alleys. A single bite could lead to a deadly infection. But the sewers were even worse. Sewer hunters, or toshers, navigated the dripping, labyrinthine tunnels beneath the city, wading through knee-high waste in search of anything valuable: lost coins, scrap metal, dropped jewelry. Sometimes, a lit lantern would ignite the sewer gases, causing explosions that could shake an entire street. Other times, sudden storms would flood the tunnels, sweeping workers away to their deaths in seconds. And what about the so-called sign-eaters of industry? The potters. In the ceramics districts, workers shaped clay, while fine powders of lead glaze filled the air. Lead settled on their skin, their clothes, their food. It slowly built up in their bodies, causing trembling hands, memory loss, and a painful deterioration of the nervous system. Many potters died young, and those who survived were often left with permanent damage. Yet, pottery was considered skilled work, proof that even a respectable job could be a death sentence. Even seemingly simple jobs were deceptive. Street sweepers breathed in a toxic daily cocktail of coal dust, horse manure, and other debris without any masks. When the infamous pea superfogs descended, mixing with these pollutants, sweeping became like working inside a poisoned cloud. Workers collapsed from respiratory failure or wandered blindly into the path of horse-drawn carriages they never saw coming. Perhaps one of the grimmest jobs of all belonged to the arsenic workers. Arsenic was everywhere in the Victorian era: dyes for wallpaper, in candles, even in cosmetics. Factories producing these brilliant green pigments had workers grinding, mixing, and packaging the lethal powder all day. The dust settled on their hair, their skin, and their food. Their skin would turn green, their eyes would burn, and their bodies would be covered in sores. The public adored the vibrant green decor, never suspecting that people were dying horribly to produce it. There were also the pure finders, usually elderly women who collected dog droppings, known as pure, to sell to tanneries for leather processing. They roamed the alleys with buckets, their income dependent on the filth they could gather. Disease was a constant threat, but the greater danger was simple poverty. Many starved before they ever got sick. Each of these jobs tells a truth the Victorians rarely spoke aloud. Survival was a privilege. People didn't choose this work because they were brave. They chose it because the alternative, starvation, was worse. The Victorian world was built on the backs of these invisible laborers, the children in chimneys, the women in match factories, the men in tunnels. In return, they were offered nothing but meager wages and an early grave. Their stories, though distant, shaped the world we live in today. They built the cities, fueled the factories, and illuminated the streets of a rising empire. And they left behind a powerful lesson: progress without protection is never progress at all. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like and subscribe for more dives into the hidden corners of history.